Hello everyone, welcome back to another session by K21 Academy. This video has a really special reason. In this video, we will be covering tips and tricks for the CKA and CKAD examination. And this is a clip from one of our CKA and CKAD exam preparation session. This video will give you a holistic idea of how you can prepare and ace your CKA and CKAD examination. So let's get into the video.
So let's take a quick look at, from the exam point of view, what we need to do, how we need to sign up, and where we need to do what we need to do. cncf.io, right? I'm sure most of you would have gone through this website, would have looked at more information around that. When I want to register for my certifications, this is the place I need to look at. In collaboration with Linux Foundation, they give you the platform where you can go write your exams, right? And we understand these exams are performance based, meaning you will have a set of questions which you have to perform, just like your other certifications. What you have, few of your cloud certifications are kind of MCQ based, like your DCA is like a MCQ based where you write your answers by clicking your buttons. But Kubernetes exams, the CKAD and S, are all performance based. They also have another certification which they've introduced pretty recently, that KCNA, that is kind of a MCQ, right? If you're looking at CKA, CKAD, and all of that, it is performance based. You will have a set of 2 hours and a set of 15 to 17 different questions where you connect to different clusters and perform those steps, right? Let's look at CKA for now. If I look at CKA, it tells me what I need to do. And if I want to register for exams, it takes me from a URL from here. It takes you to a Linux Foundation website where it'll ask you to create your user ID, an account, and stuff like that. You've got to enroll, you've got to sign up, and then you've got to buy that certification for that, right? And if you're looking to do it right away, this is the fees what you have. But generally, what happens? They do have these KubeCons at the conferences, the community get together, and if you are keeping an eye on those KubeCons, and when you buy early bird ticket for KubeCon, you definitely do get vouchers, which gives you 30 to 50% off on these certifications. So you can leverage that. Recently, they had this Cyber Monday last month. They were giving out these certifications for 50% off. It's available for close to $180. What we're looking at. So just as an additional tip, if you have to keep your eyes on that, when you buy a KubeCon, if you do an early bird ticket of KubeCon, you might buy it for like a $75 or maybe $50. Just throwing the numbers out there. And if you get a $50 voucher, 50% voucher on that, that still takes your certification cost to like $250, $300. That's one way of saving cost. I know I'm being cheap, but just thought I'll put that out for you. And you can also attend the KubeCon. You get the insight of what's going on there, and on top of it, you get some voucher which you can make use of. If you don't have to worry about that, don't worry about it. Just thought I'll bring that to your attention, right? And if I scroll down a little bit, it talks about the outline of the exam, what you should know as CKA, how have we divided your syllabus, what will you be tested on. At the very broad level, it gives you what you need to know, right? Like a little bit of services and network policies, and maybe ingress for 20%, your workload scheduling, your deployments, your whatever you do, right? Your pods, your cluster architecture, installation, configuration, and troubleshooting. So the earlier sessions, what we did, where we set up the cluster for ourselves by doing what we did, we went and deployed everything from the scratch. So that is kind of 50% of your syllabus out here. 25% is that, and troubleshooting is your broken clusters out there, right? Or your application is not running, you've got to fix it. So when we set up the cluster ourselves, we've got into a couple of issues and we went back and fixed it. That is kind of your troubleshooting. Don't worry about it. We will talk more in detail about troubleshooting in the next sessions when we do that. But that kind of gives you that kind of weightage if you understand your architecture well and your installation and what kind of configurations you need to do, and troubleshooting, half of that is done. To clear the exam, you've got to have around 66% of marks. So that the way these questions are built, few of them are very elementary, few of them are very easy per se. Maybe they have lesser weightage, and few of them might be a little tougher questions. It's kind of a combination of both, right? So if you do all of the easy questions, like the easiest question, maybe I would say is just deploy a pod. If I give you the name of the image and a name of a pod, you have to deploy it. You just order to kubectl run name of the pod, hyphen image, name of the image, done. Maybe that kind of a questions, if there are elementary, right? Maybe they'll have a lesser weightage, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 marks out there. But if I complicate the question, if I tell you, create a deployment with 10 replicas out there and create a node port service to manage those, that's kind of a little bit of a bigger question. So maybe you have more weightage on that. The point I'm trying to make is it's a combination of easy and tough questions, but we don't care, we don't worry, because no matter what they will ask from here, we know how to do all of that. Let's look at the fine-grained uh, curriculum. If I click on the curriculum overview, there's also a candidate handbook here. This is pretty important for you to read through. This exam, what is going to happen is going to be browser based, right? So you will get a browser. You can choose a browser of your liking. You've got to install some plugin, which kinds of checks and monitors. You have to give access for the webcam and all of that. So it's going to be a proctored exam where you keep your mic on. You've got to show your surroundings when you're taking a remote from your home. You need to have a clear desk with no papers around and stuff like that. So the proctor is going to look around, is going to then start your exam, right? You've got to all the time keep your mic on. You can't talk to anybody, can't whisper, don't do any random eye movements and hand movements. Maybe from what I understand, it's some AI bot sitting behind. I don't know if that, all right? They say it's a proctor, but I feel it's a bot out there. So if you do random hand movements and all of that, your exam will kind of suddenly pause and they will ask, you will talk to your proctor through a chat. So you've got to show them a valid ID and stuff like that, right? This handbook talks about all of that. Of what is your system requirement expected? You need to have, a mic on. You need to have a webcam on. Go in there, and you might have questions like, "I want to have additional monitor. Can I make use of that?" All of these FAQs, what you have, the answers are available in the handbook. So if you are planning to write the exam, you've got to read this. It gives you questions, answer to the questions what you have, right? And if what happens if I lose my connectivity in between and I lose my power, you've got to ensure you sit in a quiet place and you got to ensure you have your power backup and your internet backup. If worst case things go wrong, the exam will end. But not to worry, you will also get a free retake as well, right? When you buy this voucher. So if you fail once, you have another option to rewrite the exam. But I'm hoping nobody does that. And worst case scenario, we have that option just to give you a little bit of comfort around that. Let's go take a look at the overview and we'll come back and talk about other things. Right now, the exams are based on 1.22, right? CKA is what I'm looking at if I open the CKA PDF. Talks about what I need to know. Kind of breakup of the cluster, the curriculum what we saw. At the first level, it talks about you need to know RBAC. So what is the maximum thing they can ask me? They might ask me to create a role. They might ask me to create a role binding, or they might ask me to create a cluster role and a cluster role binding. When they do that, they can ask me to create a user or external type of user. Why? Kubernetes does not support that, right? And it will not ask you to go create some certificates out there and authenticate using some other tools because it's a Kubernetes exam. They will not allow you or want you to go look at outside documentations like a tools like OpenRSA, OpenSSL. You don't have to worry about all of that. But what is the kind of user I can create in Kubernetes is a service account. And we know it just takes a simple command for me, create service account, whatever name they've given. So the point I'm trying to tell is if you zero down your curriculum that way, maximum what they can ask me to create a role-based access of role binding, cluster binding, and assign it to a user. There's no LDAP integration going to be there. So they will not ask you to create for a group of users. They will neither ask you to create a user like the way we did when we wanted to understand RBAC. Maximum they can ask you is service account. That's the only user type what you've created on your cluster. So if I know these 5 things, no matter what kind of question they will ask me, I know how to do it. Wherever possible, try to do it in the imperative way. In a sense, I can create a service account by generating the YAML file and then going through it. Go to documentation. It's an open documentation exam. So if one web page like this, you have your exam going on, right? So you will get just like the slide, what you look at it, it'll be a black screen, like your putty screen, what you have, a terminal for you to write. And on the left hand side, you'll get some tools out there. Maybe you can open a notepad, and that notepad also is going to open in the browser. And if you are used to the maximized browser and stuff like that, it's not going to work. like the notepad is going to be maybe of this size. So when you copy paste your YAML file, it might go all over the place. So you've got to worry about that a little bit. But the point is, this is how your terminal is going to look like. This is how your notepad is going to look like. Wherever I can make use of YAML files, which is really needed, I go to my another tab which can open kubernetes.io/docs. I can go to the documentation. We know how to get the YAML files from there. I can get the YAML file out there and I can make it. But the point is, if they ask you to create a role, it's easier to create from the command line. Kubectl create role. I don't know what to do next. --help is going to give me the example. Copy the example as it is. There are 4, 5, 6 different examples in the kubectl help command. Change it to meet what they're asking you. In the example, it gives you a resource as pod and verb as list. They're asking you to maybe delete deployment. Change that pod with deployment, verb with list with delete. That's all you've got to do, right? So what I'm trying to tell you is wherever you can make use of things this way, do it so that you save time. If you finish your smaller questions faster, the larger questions which needs more of your focus, more of your time, you can do it. Questions open up one after the other. And the first thing what it give you is the context, which we have seen. From one jump server, I can connect to 10 different, 50 different clusters. How can I do that? In the config file, I would have set the cluster details. Where are my API server endpoints? What user do I connect to? And that's exactly what they would do it for you as well. So the terminal, what you see on your browser, will be some sort of a jump server from where you can connect to making use of kubectl command to different clusters. When the question opens up, the first thing what they would have given you on the top would be what context you need to use. Just copy that command and ensure you run that before every question, right? They're asking you to deploy it on one cluster, you deploy it on another cluster, you won't get the marks. Now, what you've done is correct, but it's not where you wanted, where they wanted you to do. So you've got to pay attention to that. That's where our kubeconfig, remember the kubectl config, use context, what we did when we did the RBAC class, that's where it's going to come play out with, right? And for some reason, or if there's a question out there, we'll say this, for example, static pod, just as an argument. I don't know if there will be one or not. Where do I need to put the static pod? I've got to put it in a place where my kubelet looks, right? And what will I do? In the hurry of the exam, I will go try to find that path on the jump server where I am. It's not going to work. Why? I'm just sitting on some server and I'm trying to connect to different clusters. So where do this YAML file need to be? It needs to be on the cluster, whichever node they've asked you to do. So what do I do? How do I connect to that? Is when you do kubectl get nodes, once you've connected to the context, it gives you the node names and you can use commands like SSH to go to that server. As in CKA, you are expected to know a little bit of Linux commands. Not an expert, a basic commands like how do I SSH to one server? How do I check if a service is running or not? Elementary stuff a little bit. How do I make use of install commands, package managers? Ubuntu is what the operating system they will make use of. So I need to be familiar. If I'm a Fedora guy, I'm all used to DNF and YAM. It's not going to work there. I can't go to Google. If I don't know how to install a package using Ubuntu package manager, that apt-get install, I'll be in trouble. But not to worry too much. What I'm telling is the basic commands, like systemctl is a common command, works across all of your different Linux flavors you have, right? If I know how to list the service, check the status, should be good. Elementary few commands as a CKA you are expected to know. Linux, one of them is how to SSH and how do you come out of it. Just do an exit and come out, right? You've got to practice around that. Moving on from RBAC, if there is a step for you to install the cluster using kubeadm. Now, when we did the kubeadm install, we went and looked at it and it said, you can install your cluster and you have to do a lot of prerequisites. Right, let me quickly show you that. And it told you have to do some prerequisites. Just 2 words what you need to set up the cluster. That's how simple it is. kubeadm init is going to initiate and set up the cluster for you. But for kubeadm to work, you need to do some prerequisites. What are those? You need to have your swap disabled. You need to have certain unique host names out there. You need to have some kernel modules like brnet filter loaded. You need to have some container runtime installed, and the way this Docker, if you're making use of, the way it needs to be configured, you need to set your C groups driver. All of this information is available in my documentation, but in the exam, if they ask me to do kubeadm and install a cluster, I don't have to worry about the prerequisites. They'll make it simple for them. I'm not going to make it hard for you. All you've got to do is whichever server they ask you to set up the cluster, switch to that cluster server, do kubeadm in it, whatever the question is, how do you set up, right? Worst case scenario, if they ask me to set up the cluster as well and do some prerequisites, I should know. What is the worst case there can be is kubeadm tool itself might not be installed. Do we know how to install kubeadm tool? We do. I don't remember. I don't have to worry. Where do I go? Documentation. It tells you you've got to add these package indexes and then you've got to install. This is the only command what you would need to run to install. We understand the components involved, kubelet, kubeadm, and kubectl, right? One small problem here. Package managers by default are designed to do what? Go fetch the latest packages out there. Exams happening on 1.22. Right now, if I run this command, what is going to happen? It is going to bring me the kubeadm binary of 1.23. That's the latest, right? The versions what we have here, even though I go to 1.22 documentation and look for it, this would be the command what they've asked you. You should know how to pin the version. App-get list, and it shows list of packages what you have. A little bit of those commands you've got to practice. The only thing you need to practice what? If I do kubeadm right now, it's going to install me 1.23 kubeadm binary. I want 2.2. How can I download that? I can pin the version kubeadm -1.22-0.00. That's all I've got to do. But the way the semantic versioning, that major minor patch version, how to give that, I should know a little bit of that. If I know that, I don't have to worry. Why? I don't need to remember any of these commands. All of them are available for me in the documentation. And I can open documentation in the exam. Going back. So if they ask me to set up a basic cluster, I'm good. And if they ask me to join the worker node, I know what to do. Kubernetes init gives me that join command and the token, just copy, run that, I'm done, right? We will talk about setting up a high availability cluster. For you to set up a high availability cluster, you need to set up a load balancer. Like you have 3 master nodes, and whom do you talk to, right? For these 3, you set up some software load balancer like a HA proxy or any of that. But it's a Kubernetes exam. So they will not expect you to go configure, some load balancer out there like a HA proxy or any of that. So from that point of view, when I look at it, I should know as a CKA how to set up the cluster, but I don't think so there won't be any probability of they asking me this. Just because I need to make use of some external tools for this to work, right? Even if they give, we will learn how to do it. That's a different thing. It also talks about provisioning the underlying infrastructure to deploy a Kubernetes. You should know how to provision. In a way, when I want to do kubeadm install, it asked me to do few things. But will they ask me to go provision a machine from a cloud provider? Absolutely not. Why? Because again, it's outside the boundaries of Kubernetes, right? So as a CKA, I should know all of this. It's good. But from a look at this point of view, from the exam point of view, I kind of feel that these kind of questions are good to know. I should know how to do it if I need to. If I need to turn off the swap, it just tells you that you've got to disable swap. But what is the Linux command to disable swap? I should know that. From the knowledge point of view, worst case, if they ask you in the exam, turn off, you do kubeadm init and it is failing because swap's turned on. The pre-flight check is going to tell you turn off this swap, come back and retry. I don't know how to turn off the swap. I won't find that command in the Kubernetes documentation. That's in the Linux documentation. So what am I expected? I should know how to turn off the swap. Simple command like swap off. -a will turn off all of your swap. Basic few commands I'm expected to know. I'm telling you all probability they might not, but we should be prepared for the worst so that we can perform better, right? That's your underlying infrastructure, what they're talking about. There can be all probability that they might ask you to upgrade a version because that's what you do as a Kubernetes admin, right? You're running 1.21 right now, and I want to go to 2.2 and 2.3. How can I upgrade that? That's an important topic. In all probability, that can also be a question, right? We will learn that next week. etcd, as we understand, is the data store of our cluster, the stateful part of a cluster where it stores the entire configuration and the current state of cluster, right? No etcd, no cluster. I have no window. I can't self-heal. I can't know what's going on in my cluster. I have no information about my nodes if etcd is not there. Backing it up and making use of it is a very important task as an admin, cluster admin, right? We can do that at various levels. At the operating system level, I can define some snapshot backups, which takes backup of it. From the Kubernetes point of view, you can make use of some etcd-based utilities to take a backup. We are going to learn that. That's an important concept as well, right? From this 25%, if I know 4 or 5 topics, no matter what kind of question they ask, I can score all of the 25%, right? When it comes to workload scheduling, tells you how do you deploy your deployment, how do you perform your rolling updates, rollbacks. We know how to create a deployment. Will I go create a YAML file? Absolutely not. kubectl create deploy, whatever image they've asked me. I will not waste time searching for deployment YAML file in the documentation. I will do the dry run and generate it, and I will deploy it. They ask me to do rolling update and rollback. We already know how to do it. But in the tension of the exam, I don't remember the kubectl set command. Some command I know I need to do to do the rollout, but what is that command? I don't know. What do we do when the exam starts? We can also, you can't open multiple tabs per se, right? There's one tab of documentation you can have, but what you can do smartly is create bookmarks, like for cheat sheet, for other the different things what you might look if you want to. Or don't worry too much about bookmarks, just search it out there. Cheat sheet is what you search, it gives you a cheat sheet, right? Which has all of the probable commands what you can run in Kubernetes cluster. When we scroll down and search for rollout or updating the resources, it tells you the command how you need to do it. We know how to do it. That's a different question. If I don't remember the commands and all of that, you don't need to as well, but you should know how that command works. And every time we have done, we've taken help from kubectl, right? I don't know what to do. I do kubectl set image ---- help. It gives me an example right there. The same examples are out here as well. So if there's any question out there which asks you to do a rolling update and roll back, you have both the commands here. Undo is what you do to roll back. Whatever revision number they ask you to, this is the option to make use of. They want me to roll forward, I know how to set the image. If they want me to undo, I know how to undo. Fair enough. Any question they ask me from deployment, I don't care because I know all of it. They might ask me to create a config map or a secret and make it available to some pod manifest what they've given. That's the only thing they can ask you, right? Create some secret and some application pod needs to consume it. Fine. Whatever type of secret they will ask you to. Of course, the Docker config type of secret they will not ask you because you will have to do Docker login for that and all of that, right? They would not maybe ask you that. Second is a TLS type. Doesn't matter. If they give the certificate and key, I will create the certificate TLS type. Third is a generic type, where there are two ways of creating it. From a file, from literal value. We know both of that. How to create from literal value, we know. We know how to create from a file as well. So no matter how they ask me, both are same, right? Config map secrets, two different kinds. One is non-confidential, one is confidential. The way you create the key value pairs, the literal, from file, all of them is same. The way you consume them also is same. How? As either environment variable or as a volume. Do I need to remember that? You need to know how to do it, of course, but you don't need to remember why. You can go to secrets documentation and look at it. How do I make it available inside the pod? Exact YAML copy is there, copy that, change it to yourself. The point is, whatever the question they might ask you, doesn't matter. Scale the application, elementary stuff. They ask me to create scale an application. 3 replicas are there, change it to 5. Couple of different ways I can do it. Simplest what I will do, kubectl scale command. Scale whatever they ask me to scale it up, my job's done. I can also edit that, I can also modify the YAML. I will not do all of that to save time, right? These are just understanding about your self-healing and applications, which we know with the help of replicas and deployment. We have understood all of that, right? And it says a little bit of awareness of your, common templating tools, like you apply, you create, that should be fine. So whatever they might ask me, deployment secrets and scaling, we are okay. All the 15% we can score easily, right? Comes to services, they might ask you to create, They will not ask you to install a CNI. It will already be installed for you, because again, that's an outside URL what you need to look at. They will ask you to create some services, and the questions can be a combination as well. Like when I say, when it's broken down into two different categories here, a question can span across all of these categories. For example, they can ask you to create a deployment and make use of the secret, right, and create a service for that and do something else as well. That can be possible, right? Whatever type of service secrets, what they will ask, they can ask me only two type: cluster IP and node port. Load balancer needs to go to external world, which I'm sure they will not, right? I know how to create a service. Easiest way is what? Expose. I can create load cluster IP, node port. We have seen all of those examples earlier. If not, kubectl create service. I don't know how to do. No worries. Documentation of service will give you YAML file. If not, we also know how to do dry run, right? Ingress controller. You should know how to use it. Controller will be deployed. You've got to create that ingress resources, that rules what we saw today. We can set those up. How to use and configure DNS. Core DNS gets installed as an add-on, so we don't have to worry about that. That will be available for you. And of course, you will not have to install appropriate network plugin, because you need to go to the outside world, right? You go to add-ons on Kubernetes documentation, the 15-20 of them, what it shows. Click on that, it takes you to outside URL. So I'm hoping they will not ask you to set things up. But if they ask you to and they allow you to go to some outside, or if they give you some URL, say, set this up, you just got to apply and set things up, right? All right. Moving on. From the storage point of view, you have storage classes to create, your persistent volumes or volumes. If they ask you to make use of your applications, maybe they will have some storage class already deployed. They will maybe ask you to create a particular storage, a PVC claim, to leverage that particular storage class. So you need to create a claim and reference it inside the pod. Whatever path they've asked you, you've got to mount that inside your container. We know at the two levels we've got to do that. Under pod spec, I define my volume, the name of the volume and what type of the volume, where is the volume coming from, and I give the reference to persistent volume claim, right? Maybe I have to create a volume claim where I'll reference the storage class, whatever the size they've asked me to, whatever the access mode they've asked me to, and make it available inside the pod. In my pod manifest, under spec of pod, I will define the volume. Inside the container specification, I mount it wherever they've asked me to mount. This has 10% of weightage. A couple of simple questions like creating your PVCs and accessing is what you can expect, right? So if you do the lab kit, what we have around storage, that should cover your 10%. Troubleshooting, right? You'll maybe have broken clusters. You'll maybe have broken applications. You've got to maybe look at a couple of things. One is maybe look at this troubleshooting here talks more about from the cluster point of view. That's what it talks about here, right? Also talks about a little bit of application failure. And I do kubectl get pods. My worker node 2 and 3, it's showing as not ready. Why is it not ready? The question maybe is like, fix it, make it ready, right? Now I've got to look at a few different places. Troubleshooting we will cover next, but just to give you an overview is, we make use of certain commands. Kubectl tells me what are those commands, right? If I just did kubectl and help, what did kubectl tell me? There are many commands out there for troubleshooting purposes, like you can describe. Elementary thing, what I'll do is describe. That is not working, kubectl describe me the node. There will be some event out there down below tells me something is wrong. Pod is not running, I've got to fix that. Kubectl describe me pod, tells me what the problem is, maybe the typo in the image name, something, whatever the error be, right? Describe is what we look at initially, and we want more information. The standard output, whatever is printed, that pod is printed, we can fetch all of the information from logs. We want to connect to that particular pod and container, we can do exec and attach and stuff like that. Coming back to troubleshooting. From the node point of view, if the node is not in ready, what can be the challenges I have? I look at describe, does not give me much information, right? Where do I look at? And who is that main agent who's running on that particular node, who's talking to my API server? Maybe those two are not, yes, kubelet. And maybe those two are not talking to each other, and my API server does not have the updated information. Maybe something is broken in between. Maybe the kubelet is not running itself. So what do? I go to the specific worker node. I will check if the kubelet is working or not, first place. When we set up our cluster and we were having some troubles when we saw node was not coming online, what did we do? We went and restarted the kubelet. The combination got reset and everything came back to ready state, right? Those kind of little bit of troubleshooting. For that, you need to know a little bit of what? Linux commands. If you have a broken cluster, you need to know a little bit of Linux commands, not major, just like how to check the status of your service and stuff like that. You can fix that, come back, check. Application failure, you should know how to look at logs and describe and try to understand and fix that. And if your API server itself is not running, you've done some configuration wrong, you've got to fix that, make that alive. Where do I need to check those logs and stuff like that? We will look at all of that when we do troubleshooting, right? So troubleshooting has got like 30%. When I can say more or less, it's covered when you understand how to set up your cluster, understand your few Linux commands, you're good with this. That's about the curriculum what you have. So the point I wanted to make was you got to practice all of the activity guides we have. Whatever activity guides we have, we've kind of designed it across all of these topics. Like if I ask you to create a multi-container pod, activity guide has a step where we have done multi-container pod. In the exam, they might ask you, they might not ask you. It's fine. If they ask you, you know how to do it. In my lab guide, I might have made use of example 1, 2, 3 as the image. They might give you example of 4, 5, 6. That's the only thing that's going to change, right? If they ask you to create at the pod level, what they can ask me, create a pod. Okay. Create a multi-container pod. Fine, I understand. Create a static pod. Fine, I know how to do that as well. Create a edit container pod. I know how to do that as well, right? So no matter what questions they ask, so if you practice the activity guides, what we have covered all of the syllabus from the CKA point of view. Those activity guides are factored around these curriculum, right? They ask you to create a deployment. Fine, I know how to do it. They ask me to create a service. I know roll out, roll back, create in ingress rules. I know what to do. Create a volume. I know what to do. So the point is you just need to practice a little bit. Since those are hands-on exams, the more faster you do, the more easier for you. And for some reason, I think the first question which opens up is like a long, lengthy question for me. They ask me to do 10 different things, create some roles, some service, some deployment, da da da. And I think maybe I should not do it. Just a gut feel. What can I do? I can mark that question. It gives you a drop down. You can mark that question and move on. You can say, Mark, I want to revisit this question. You can flag it and you can skip to next question. Maybe next question is elementary, some simple stuff, right? You do that and you move forward. And whenever you think, okay, I've covered, I want to come back, you can always come back to those questions, do up and down and come back and complete it. All right. So you need to know a little bit of time management is what I would recommend is do all of the easy questions, gives you confidence. Like the elementary questions, if you have like create pods and stuff like that, you don't need to go open a lot of YAML files or look into documentation. Elementary stuff, if you knock it off easily, gives you more window, more time to do it. And also, and a lot of people tell me, oh, it's open documentation, I can search it. But believe me, the exam 2 hours, you will not know where the time went. So the searching in the documentation you need to do before the exam. As in, all of these topics listed, you should know when you search what the keyword do I need to look for in the search and how do I land into that page. I should be familiar with the documentation. So everything I do to practice, I will not look at the activity guide. I will read the question from the activity guide and I'll come back and try to leverage what I can from the KubeCat help and the documentation to deploy it. All right, so that's a little bit about the curriculum what we have. So the only thing is we've got to practice, 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 right? Now the next question is, can you give me some sample questions? Can I go look at some simulator, right? There used to be an external simulator which was very popular, who made by Kim, and what CNCF did was they collaborated with him, and that simulator is available for you for free when you sign up and buy your certificate. So when you buy your certificate, you go into your training Linux Foundation portal. Just below the link where you have to schedule your exam, you will find, and if I can see it somewhere here, I will try to show you. But it also has they have some activity guide. It talks about interview-based questions and some questions around the this PDF is made available to you. Talks about, this is the curriculum handbook I was talking about. You've got to look at it, and then talks about what you need to do. Let me see if it has the view for your simulator. Just when you look at your Linux Foundation portal and you you want to schedule your exam, when you buy the voucher, you have 1 year validity. I can buy it today when the KubeCon is offering me discount, but from that day I have 1 year time. Whenever I'm ready, I can schedule that exam, right? You have an option to schedule your exam here. And the newer screenshot, what you look at it, it also has a next button here. It tells you simulator, right? It gives you a free simulator, and if you click on it, it launches your killer.sh thing, which gives you a simulator which looks exactly similar look and feel. What you have is like the way you're going to have an exam. Earlier, if you wanted to practice, you had to buy these simulators. Now they've tied up with Kim, and this is available for you for free. And when you look at these scenarios, right, these questions, they would look and feel like the way this is going to open up in a browser, just like the way it would in your exam. A terminal would be opening on your browser, and you will have a notepad and stuff like that. These questions are a little tougher than what my experience is than the real exam questions are. And if you can clear these simulators, you can do it easily. Earlier, you had to pay for it. Now you don't have to pay for it. When you buy the voucher, it comes for you for free. Make use of that. They give you, I think, 2 simulator trials, what you can do. Write both the exams, gives you enough confidence. You can write the real exam. All right. That's a little bit of that. So you've got to read the handbook. You've got to familiarize yourself by setting up the environment, what is needed, and practice more to crack it very easily. It's very easy. Somebody tells you Kubernetes exam is tough, don't believe them. It's just that they have not practiced enough. Like we looked at the curriculum, right? Anything they ask from it, we don't care because we know everything from that.
So guys, I hope you liked the video and you gained some amazing insights for your exam preparation. And if you really want to learn more about the CKA and CKAD examinations, then we have our blog. So you can just visit at k21academy.com /Kubernetes 57, and this blog will be covering the whole holistic introduction about CKAD examinations and some of the exam questions and answers as well. And you can also download one amazing guide to which I'll just be showing you a demo so that you can download it very easily. All right, so if you want to download the proper guide, then you just have to visit k21academy.com /Kubernetes 57. And if you just scroll down to this page, you'll be able to see to download the guide, click here. So you just have to click here. And moving ahead, you just have to click on download for free. Just add your first name and your email address and click on download now. You'll be seeing a thank you page. So you can just check out your emails and further details will be sent out to you. And also you can join our Telegram community to stay updated with the trends. Thank you.